Lil Durk's federal trial kicks off next week, and what's surfacing about how he was carrying himself in the days before the feds closed in is honestly hard to process. The way he carried himself, the words he chose publicly, the man he seemed to be turning into, none of it matches what prosecutors are now claiming inside a federal courtroom. And that gap is exactly what's turning this into one of the most jaw-dropping stories hip-hop has seen in years. Stick around, because we're about to break it all down. But first, quick word. If you're serious about making it in the rap game, I packed everything I've learned into one ebook. We're talking building a real following from nothing, getting labels sliding into your inbox with offers, and even earning real money in this business without ever touching a microphone. And no, you haven't missed your shot. Everyone loves claiming the wave is over. It isn't. Fresh artists and hungry hustlers are popping off daily, and the ones winning are the ones who started today instead of waiting. It's just $39, the price of a couple coffees, for a blueprint capable of flipping how you move in this industry for good. The link's sitting in the bio, go check it out, then let's dive back into the story. Yo, what's up, fam? Today, we're breaking down the entire saga behind Lil Durk's looming federal murder-for-hire trial. We're walking through the government's case, the heartbreaking backstory prosecutors say sparked it all, the evidence they claim to hold, and then diving into what Durk was publicly doing in those final months before agents caught up with him in Florida. This story cuts from every direction, so let's jump right in. Lil Durk, legally known as Durk Banks, is set to face trial starting August 20th, 2026, inside the United States District Court for the Central District of California in Los Angeles. This case has turned into one of the most closely followed federal prosecutions of a major hip-hop figure in recent memory, pulling attention not just from fans and media, but also legal experts tracking every twist since the original indictment surfaced in 2024. The trial's already been pushed back more than once, first from October to January, then to April, now finally locked in for August. Each delay came despite Durk's objections, with his legal team repeatedly pushing to move sooner. His lawyer, Drew Finling, stated openly they were fully ready and wanted no further postponements, which says a lot about how confident his defense feels heading in. The case ties Durk to 5 associates from his label, Only the Family, widely known as OTF. Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald oversees the case, and his decisions through pretrial proceedings have heavily shaped how things unfolded. Several co-defendants tried getting their cases split from Durk's, claiming standing trial next to one of hip-hop's biggest stars would unfairly damage their own defense. The judge rejected those requests, ruling defendants tied to the same alleged conspiracy belong in one trial together, since much evidence would overlap no matter how cases were divided. That ruling kept every defendant locked onto the same path toward that same August courtroom. To grasp how seriously the federal government approaches this case, consider this: fighting to keep every defendant together and pushing through every delay request says everything about how strongly prosecutors believe in their case heading in. Now here's what federal prosecutors allege. Prosecutors claimed Durk Banks planned and paid for a revenge killing aimed at rapper Quando Rondo, whose birth name is Takian Bowman. According to the indictment, the motive behind it all was retaliation, specifically payback for the November 2020 killing of Devin Bennett, better known as King Von, one of Durk's tightest friends and most valuable creative partners. King Von was gunned down outside an Atlanta nightclub during a confrontation tied to Quando Rondo's circle. That loss shook the entire OTF camp and left an unmistakable imprint on Durk, something visible to anyone paying attention through his music, his interviews, and how he carried himself in public afterward. To grasp why that moment cut so deep, you need to understand what King Von actually represented to Durk and to the wider OTF family. He wasn't simply a signee on the label. Durk had personally poured belief and investment into him, watching him rise from a young talent out of Parkway Gardens into one of Chicago Drill's most magnetic voices. Their bond stretched far past music. They moved as a unit, they built as a unit. And when he was taken at just 26, the grief that followed was undeniable, raw, and impossible to hide. Durk never pretended otherwise. He spoke about it openly in interview after interview. He wove it into song after song. That loss fused itself into his public image so tightly that separating it from everything he did afterward became nearly impossible. Prosecutors now argue that grief eventually twisted into something far darker, claiming Durk allegedly set in motion a chain of events that would stretch across the following 2 years. One of the most damning pieces of evidence prosecutors point to is a text message allegedly sent only days after King Von's death. On November 7, 2020, prosecutors say Durk messaged a co-conspirator, writing that he refused to let it go, that nothing would be forgotten, and that the loss was turning him into a completely different person. That's the kind of line that lands hard in front of a federal jury, and prosecutors have built much of their narrative around it. Beyond that message, they also allege that by January 2021, Durk had shot an unreleased music video for a track called Red Man, where he's seen chasing down and shooting an actor prosecutors claim closely resembles Quando Rondo. Prosecutors want that footage admitted at trial, insisting it proves intent. The shooting at the heart of this case took place on August 19, 2022. Per the indictment, associates allegedly traced Quando Rondo's movements from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles, where a bounty had reportedly been placed on his life. The attack unfolded at a gas station in the Los Angeles area. Quando Rondo was there but walked away alive. His cousin, Saviera Robinson, known as Lil Pab, did not. Robinson was only 24. He was never the intended target, just a young man caught in the crossfire of what prosecutors call a coordinated, financed, calculated murder-for-hire scheme. His death is now the backbone of the entire federal case. For anyone who remembers how fast that story spread when it first broke, the news that Quando Rondo had been attacked in Los Angeles traveled instantly. What the public didn't realize at the time was that federal investigators were already quietly assembling what would become this exact prosecution. The government's theory reaches well beyond a simple feud between two rappers. Prosecutors argue that OTF functioned as a hybrid outfit, part legitimate music business, part criminal machine that leaned on violence to protect and grow its power. That framing matters enormously because it pushes this case past a deadly personal dispute into something federal authorities treat with far greater weight. A pattern of organized criminal activity with Durk allegedly sitting at the top, issuing orders and financing the operations. That's the bank's gang enterprise framework the superseding indictment brought into the case. And it's the exact lens prosecutors want jurors using to view everything they claim happened between November 2012 and August 2022. But here's where things really escalate. Prosecutors didn't stop at the original indictment. In June 2026, mere months before the August trial date, a federal grand jury handed down a superseding indictment that massively broadened the government's case. Fresh charges were filed under the Federal Violent Crimes in Aid of Racketeering statute, one of the harshest gang-related legal tools available in federal court. Prosecutors now claim Durk wasn't only tied to the Quando Rondo murder plot, but that he actually ran a wider criminal operation they're calling the bank's gang enterprise, and that he directed additional killings and crimes far beyond what the original indictment ever touched. The expanded indictment also brings up a 2019 Atlanta shooting, along with a January 2022 killing involving Stephen Mack, described as a rival gang member. These new additions turned an already heavy case into something carrying significantly steeper legal risk for every single defendant involved. Durk's legal team fought back hard against the superseding indictment, filing motions claiming that piling on major new charges so close to trial made mounting a real defense nearly impossible, and that the timing itself violated their client's right to a speedy trial. They pushed the judge to either toss the new charges entirely or split Durk's case away from his co-defendants. Judge Fitzgerald shot down both requests, keeping the trial firmly locked in for August 20th. The government, meanwhile, insisted it was completely ready to move forward. On top of everything else, earlier in 2026, reports surfaced claiming Durk had allegedly been caught with an Apple Watch inside his cell, a detail that piled even more scrutiny onto his pre-trial period and sparked heavy conversation across both media outlets and legal circles. As far as evidence goes, prosecutors say they've built a detailed timeline backing their claims. One reportedly built from private jet travel logs, rental car records, purchases of ski masks, and digital communications. One especially damning piece the government keeps returning to is a text message prosecutors say shows Durk telling an associate to avoid booking flights under any name linked to him. Something they argue proves he was fully aware of what he was doing and actively trying to dodge detection. The unreleased Red Man music video, along with the broader racketeering framework, is also expected to carry major weight in the government's presentation. Durk's defense has been battling throughout pretrial proceedings to keep certain material away from the jury, specifically pushing back against using rap lyrics and music videos as evidence, insisting creative work shouldn't be treated like a confession. Inside federal court, that approach is still completely legal, and the judge has already handed down a split ruling on exactly which music and video footage gets shown. Meaning select pieces of Durk's creative output will play in front of jurors as the government argues they expose his true intentions. There's also the question of how prosecutors are painting OTF as a whole. The superseding indictment brands the organization as a hybrid, part legitimate record label, part criminal machine that relied on violence to protect and grow its influence. That framing carries enormous weight, because it pushes this far beyond prosecutors simply claiming Durk did something horrific after King Von's death. They're arguing there's a documented history of organized violence tied directly to his organization, and that the Quando Rondo plot was just one chapter of a much larger criminal enterprise running for years, with Durk sitting at the top, directing and bankrolling the operation. Now let's get into the part of this story that blindsided so many people. Because while all of this was allegedly unfolding behind closed doors, Lil Durk was showing the public something completely different. In the months leading straight up to his October 2024 arrest, fans picked up on a shift in how Durk was presenting himself online and within his community, one that stood out for how consistent and genuine it felt. This wasn't a single Instagram post or a calculated attention grab. It was a prolonged, visible shift that unfolded across months and touched nearly every part of his life. The biggest piece of that shift was his open, public embrace of Islam. Durk had actually practiced the faith for years, but by 2024, it had become the center of nearly everything he shared with the world. In August 2024, just weeks before the federal charges surfaced, he posted on Instagram declaring the only labels anyone should ever attach to him were man, father, and 100% Muslim. He followed that up on his Instagram story, writing directly that he doesn't gangbang and that he's Muslim, adding that you can't be both and that he was going to be the one to say it out loud. He was inviting the people who followed him to step into this new chapter alongside him. He even bought a custom Star of Islam chain to wear openly as a statement of faith, a move that pulled some criticism but also showed just how deeply he was committing to this identity in full public view. His social media during this stretch was packed with messages about spirituality, personal accountability, and peace. He ran prayer sessions on Instagram Live and invited followers to join him, pushing people to drop their pride and focus on something bigger than themselves. He talked about healing within Chicago communities, about breaking cycles of violence instead of fueling them. He spoke about his children and the kind of father he wanted to become for them going forward. This messaging held steady across weeks and months. It didn't feel hollow or staged the way public figures often package image shifts for marketing. People who actually knew him and worked alongside him described someone genuinely working to steer his life and platform towards something more lasting and meaningful than what shaped his earlier years. The community work during this stretch echoed the same pattern. Durk's nonprofit, the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation, launched back in 2020, had quietly been putting in real work for years, long before the transformation became a talking point. In 2022, it teamed up with Chicago Votes to hand out 29,000 bottles of hand sanitizer to inmates and correctional staff across Illinois Department of Corrections facilities during the COVID outbreak, an effort Durk spoke about openly and clearly cared about. He attached his name to it and explained publicly why it meant something to him. By 2024, the foundation was growing its college outreach programs, community partnerships, and support work in underserved neighborhoods nationwide. Kevin Freeman, executive director of Neighborhood Heroes, described Durk as far more than a figurehead, someone actively shaping the organization's direction and showing up for the very people it aimed to serve. The organization had genuine momentum and real infrastructure heading into the fall of 2024, and people who'd poured serious time into building it beside him say they were completely blindsided when the arrest hit. The moment Freeman and others from the foundation point to as especially telling happened the exact week the federal charges broke. Durk had been sitting down with a group of at-risk young men. According to Singleton, a community organizer who was there, Durk told those young brothers to think everything through, not just the moment itself, but what would follow down the road and how every choice would shape their future. He opened up about regretting parts of his own past. He handed out concert tickets. And that very same week, the federal case broke publicly. Those in the room said they could sense he was carrying something heavy. Still, his message to those young men stayed focused on making smarter choices. What keeps this timing at the center of the public conversation is the gap separating the alleged crime from the most visible piece of his transformation. The Los Angeles shooting happened in August 2022. His public shift toward Islam, peace, and community work became most visible in 2024. That 2-year gap between those points is exactly where the debate lives. On one side, supporters treat it as proof that spiritual growth unfolds gradually, and that Durk had already been moving quietly in this direction long before it became public. They point to the Neighborhood Heroes Foundation work happening well before 2024, the slow buildup of faith-based messaging over the years, and the accounts of community workers who say they experienced his commitment as real and steady. On the other side, some people look at how everything lined up and ask a tougher question. Federal agents had been building this case since at least 2022. By 2024, 5 of his associates had already been indicted. The window was closing fast, and that's exactly when the most visible, dramatic public shift took place. Whether Durk genuinely found clarity through faith while sensing what was coming, or whether his faith had been quietly deepening the whole time and the timing is purely coincidental, is a question the trial itself will never settle. It's the kind of thing that lives in the gray area between legal fact and human truth. And that's exactly why this case has sparked conversation that stretches far beyond hip-hop circles. Now let's talk about his arrest, because this is where the story turns almost cinematic. On October 24, 2024, right after 5 of his OTF co-defendants were taken into custody that morning, Durk didn't wait around. According to federal records, within hours of those arrests, he booked 3 separate international flights, all departing that same night, a one-way trip from Miami to Dubai, a one-way flight from Fort Lauderdale to Switzerland, and a private jet from Miami to Italy. Every single one of those destinations lacks a U.S. extradition treaty. Prosecutors claim iCloud records show Durk instructing an OTF associate not to book flights under any name tied to him, something they argue proves he fully understood what was unfolding and was actively trying to vanish without a trace. Federal agents intercepted him at the Miami airport roughly an hour before that Italy flight was set to leave. He's been held without bail ever since, remaining in federal custody through every delay and every pre-trial hearing, now approaching 2 full years locked up before the trial has even started. That stretch in pre-trial detention hasn't broken him publicly. According to his father, Dante Banks, known as Big Durk, who sat down on the Breakfast Club to give a candid update, Durk has stepped into a spiritual leadership role inside the facility. When he first arrived, there were reportedly only 4 Muslims on his block. By the time his father gave that interview, that number had grown to 17. Durk had been actively bringing fellow inmates into Islam, building community behind bars the same way he'd built it on the outside. His father described watching his son face incarceration through the lens of faith, saying that as a Muslim, you focus on what Allah is doing for you right now, and understand that becoming a better man matters more than whatever the system is trying to do to you. The question fueling so much of this public conversation is one nobody outside that courtroom can truly answer. Was the transformation real? Community organizers who worked beside him described someone genuinely trying to change direction, but prosecutors are walking into federal court armed with a superseding indictment, a text message, an unreleased music video, jet records, rental car data, iCloud records, and a racketeering framework naming him as the head of a criminal enterprise. And the picture of a man booking 3 flights to non-extradition countries the same morning his crew got arrested sits right alongside those prayer. sessions, and community gatherings as part of the exact same story. The jury will have to make sense of all of it. The stakes walking into August 20th couldn't be higher. Durk has pleaded not guilty to every charge. His legal team has fought hard throughout pre-trial proceedings, challenging evidence, pushing back on delays, and contesting the expanded indictment right up to the final stretch. The trial is expected to stretch across several weeks given the number of defendants, the sheer volume of evidence, and the complexity of the racketeering framework prosecutors have constructed around the original murder-for-hire allegations. Whatever unfolds inside that courtroom will carry consequences reaching far beyond just the verdict. For years, Durk Banks built one of the most impressive careers in drill music, becoming the backbone and public face of Only the Family while stacking collaborations, chart placements, and a legacy that earned him Grammy recognition and real cultural weight. He came out of Englewood on Chicago's South Side, one of the city's toughest environments, and built something that reached millions of people worldwide who saw their own experiences reflected in his music. His ability to capture grief, loyalty, street survival, and the tangled emotional weight of growing up in poverty, surrounded by violence, connected with an entire generation of listeners in a way few artists ever manage. He won a Grammy for Best Melodic Rap Performance. He donated $150,000 to Chicago's mayor following the inauguration. The village of Broadview handed him the key to the city, a symbolic gesture representing community trust and recognition, a key that was quietly pulled back after his arrest, saying everything about how fast institutional goodwill can vanish once federal charges land. His charitable work through Neighborhood Heroes and his willingness to speak openly about faith and accountability added a new layer to that legacy in the years before everything collapsed. He looked like someone about to write a second chapter, one shaped less by the streets he came from and more by what he could build for the communities that raised him. All of that now sits in the shadow of a federal indictment growing heavier with every new filing. And the trial beginning next week will determine whether that second chapter ever gets written outside a prison cell. At 33 years old, Lil Durk stands at one of the most defining crossroads of his life. The federal trial, starting August 20th, 2026, will decide what the legal system makes of the allegations laid out before it. His attorney, Drew Finling, has publicly stated they're fully prepared to proceed. The government says the same. What plays out over the coming weeks inside that Los Angeles courtroom will carry weight stretching far beyond the people sitting at the defense table. It will shape how OTF is viewed moving forward, how the music industry continues handling federal prosecutions of major artists, whether rap lyrics and videos should ever be treated as criminal evidence, and whether the philanthropic foundation Durk built through Neighborhood Heroes can survive the extended absence of its founder. These aren't small questions, and none of them come with easy answers. But the story of who he was becoming publicly in those months before his arrest, the prayer sessions on Instagram Live, the Neighborhood Heroes college tours, the conversations with young men in Chicago about thinking past the moment, the declaration that he was only a Muslim and a father and nothing else, and then, inside a federal facility, converting fellow inmates to Islam while awaiting trial on murder-for-hire charges. That story exists entirely on its own terms, no matter what a jury ultimately decides. The people who sat in those rooms and joined those calls say what they witnessed felt completely real. The community organizers who built alongside him say the work was genuine, and losing his presence hurt the mission in ways still being felt today. Whether a federal jury in Los Angeles decides that the same man doing all of that was also the man allegedly booking 3 flights to non-extradition countries the very morning his crew was arrested, that's the question August 20th will finally start to answer. And however this ends, the contrast between those two versions of Durk Banks is going to remain one of the most talked about chapters in hip-hop history for a long time to come. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you genuinely believe Durk's transformation before his arrest was real? Or do you think deep down he already knew exactly what was coming? Drop your take in the comments. I actually read every single one. And if you don't want to miss a single second of our full trial coverage the moment things kick off, hit that subscribe button right now so you're locked in when it all begins.